Last night provided a moment that no one could have planned in a world where reality TV is fueled by shock value. As rumors went viral on social media, whispers became roars, claimed to have been caught in a furious altercation with Evelyn. She is notorious for having a fierce temper and having little tolerance for disloyalty. The cause, a shared lover and a passionate night that, according to supporters, has already been broken down frame by frame. We're not claiming that this is true, but the noise level is overwhelming. Witnesses to the live events claim to have seen Ty's behavior abruptly alter. Her voice cut through the cacophony as she insisted on answers. Evelyn's calm, even arrogant demeanor further fueled the flames. Every camera in the room was focused on the two ladies standing inches apart, poised to burst, and the atmosphere was tense. In a matter of seconds, social media was ablaze with followers who were divided between incredulous and indignant reactions. Was the final treachery discovered in real time, or was this a miscommunication gone awry? In any case, it set the setting for one of the most tumultuous evenings in the history of this performance and its audience. Even before Ty arrived, the room was humming. When she did, however, there was an almost palpable change in the air. Every single eye in the room seemed to be drawn to her. Every hushed exchange ended abruptly. According to subsequent reports, you could feel the heat coming off of her along with a sense of astonishment, as if she had a storm of emotions in her chest that was ready to burst. She glanced around the room before settling on Evelyn, who was lounging at the far end of the sofa, crossing one leg over the other. There was not even the tiniest trace of a grin on her face. Since the previous evening, rumors had been circulating. However, no one anticipated that things would escalate so quickly. The topic of discussion was a guy with whom both ladies had some kind of relationship, but the true fuel for the fire was the rumored sexy experience he had had with Evelyn a few days before. The producers loved it, but those who saw the live tape said they saw enough body language to know something was coming. The tension increased like a drumbeat as the UCR camera panned in and the microphone remained hot. Nobody was able to stop. Ty wasted no time. She walked steadily across the room. Her heels pounded the floor in a precise beat as she took deliberate steps. She said steadily, but with a glass-cutting edge, "You got something you want to say to me, Evelyn?" There was silence in the room. Even the crew members' background conversation subsided. Evelyn's eyelids gradually raised and she shrugged, a gesture that might make an already tense person furious. "It depends," Evelyn answered in an excruciatingly composed tone. "Are we discussing the truth or your interpretation of events?" The audience echoed with gasps. A few in the rear choked back laughing, not from laughter but from pure shock at Evelyn's audacity. Her voice lowered so that only the front row and the microphones could hear it, and Ty's eyes narrowed as she moved closer. "Do you really believe I had no idea where you were 2 nights ago? Do you believe I was unaware of what transpired?" Evelyn did not recoil. People have always spoken, Ty. However, you ought to know better than to take every rumor at its value. A cast member moved uneasily in their chair, obviously unsure about whether to remain or step in. After silently observing the whole event with wide eyes, Chantel leaned forward at last. "Maybe we should," she said. However, Ty interrupted her with a raised hand. "No," Ty responded, raising her voice. "You sat there with him in public, well aware of how this would seem, and said, 'We're not going to sweep this under the rug.' Despite knowing what others would think, you went ahead and did it. The live crowd was captivated. The collective was nearly audible. Take a breath," awaiting Evelyn's response. She rested her elbows on her knees and leaned forward a little. "You and I have played this game long enough to know that nothing remains secret, if we're being honest, Ty. Perhaps he wouldn't have been searching for companionship elsewhere if you were giving him a bit more attention." Ty's response was instantaneous as the sentence struck like a slap. The words tumbled out quicker than even she had planned, and her voice rose to a near yell. She moved so near that there was little any room between them. "You want to blame me for your choices for what you did?" she said. When a factory worker moved anxiously just off camera, obviously prepared to intervene if the situation got out of hand. A dot. Later, internet viewers said that this was the turning point. The live stream's conversation room exploded. Some fans are justifying Ty's rage, while others are taking sides. Some have referred to Evelyn's poise as the ultimate power move. During the show, hashtags started to gain popularity as viewers shared slow-motion replays and video of each of the two women's tiny facial expressions. However, inside the room, it seemed like the stakes were bigger than online discourse. There was more to this than a guy. It had to do with history and verbal conflicts that had been building for some months. Although this was not their first altercation, according to those with knowledge of the matter, it was by far the most widely reported. Everyone in the cast was forced to choose a side because of the betrayal, whether it was true or perceived. Nevertheless, Evelyn maintained her composure. She whispered, "Ty," in a voice that was almost too quiet for the microphones. "You're allowing," Ty chuckled, but not in a lighthearted way. "They win. You're letting the whispers run your life. If you truly believed in him, in yourself, none of this would matter." It reverberated off the walls of the studio and was harsh and biting. Try not to portray yourself as a victim in this situation. That night, you knew precisely what you were doing. Then there was a murmur about pictures coming from the opposite side of the room. Ty's head then spun around. Photos. Which pictures? She made a demand. A thick silence, the kind that makes your skin prickle, descended upon the room. For the first time, Evelyn's gaze flitted, and it was sufficient to inform Ty that there was more to the tale than she had previously understood. The producers glanced at one another, sensing that the drama was just getting started. And the two women at the heart of the chaos came into sharper focus on the cameras. Time seemed to stop for a moment. Everyone in the room is holding their breath and anticipating whatever remained of the fragile was to be destroyed by the next revelation. Her eyes were fixed on Evelyn, searching her face for any hint of guilt. But her expression was unreadable, like that of a poker player who had been playing the game for too long to reveal anything. The small flicker Ty she had noticed earlier told her she wasn't dreaming, but that there was something here that Evelyn didn't want her or anyone else to know. Calm. Ty single quotes as question hung in the air like a storm cloud ready to burst. Before anyone could say anything, Chantel shifted uneasily in her chair and looked directly at the cameras, realizing how unvarnished and unprocessed this moment was evolving. Perhaps she didn't start at this time. However, Ty abruptly interrupted, her voice trembling with restrained anger. "No, Chantel, this is the right moment. Do you think I'll hold off until the cameras are turned off? Do you really think I'm going to let her leave without telling her the truth?" The audience murmured, restless, sensing a revelation coming. Ty took a step closer to Evelyn, her voice dropping into a dangerous calm. "What photos are they talking about, Evelyn? Because if I find out you and him were somewhere you shouldn't have been, and there's proof, I'm not holding back." Evelyn's eyes narrowed just slightly, a subtle warning, but it was too late. Someone from the far corner spoke up loud enough for the mics to catch. "They're talking about the rooftop pictures." The words seemed to echo, and suddenly everyone's attention shifted in unison. Ty's head snapped toward the source of the voice. "Rooftop pictures? What rooftop pictures?" she demanded, her tone so sharp it made even the crew freeze. One of the makeup artists, who had clearly been trying to stay out of the drama, whispered to someone beside her, but the microphones caught fragments enough to spark even more questions. She was with him late. "Champagne?" Ty turned back to Evelyn, fury and disbelief wearing in her expression. "Tell me it's not true. Tell me you weren't with him on that rooftop." Evelyn finally shifted in her seat, her legs uncrossing as she leaned forward, her tone calm but cutting. "Ty, you're acting like you own him, like he was yours. To lose, the reality is he makes his own choices. And if he chose to spend a night with me, maybe you should be asking why." The collective gasp from the audience was deafening. Someone in the back muttered, "Oh, she went there," while others grabbed their phones, already typing frantically to friends and followers about what was unfolding live before their eyes. Ty's voice rose, trembling, now with a mix of anger and hurt. "You want to talk about choices? What about loyalty? What about respect? You've known me for years, Evelyn. Years. And you think this is okay? Don't make it sound like you're innocent." Evelyn shot back, her voice losing some of its earlier calm. "You've had your moments to tie. You've crossed lines. The difference is I don't play the victim when I get caught." The tension between them was so thick it felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. She tried to step in, placing herself halfway between them, but Ty brushed past her, closing the gap entirely. Entirely. "You've been smiling in my face," Ty hissed while sneaking around behind my back. "And you expect me to just sit here and take it?" Evelyn stood now, the two women nearly nose to nose, their voices overlapping in heated bursts. "Well, I'm not sneaking around, Ty. I'm living my life. You don't get to control that." "Living? Your life?" Ty repeated, her tone dripping with disbelief. "You call it living your life? I call it betrayal." The audience was eating up every second of it. The chat section online exploding with comments, some siding with Ty, others applauding. Evelyn's unapologetic stance. Hashtags were already trending. Fans dissecting every word, every glare, every subtle shift in body language. But the real shock came when someone from production, clearly trying to manage the chaos, stepped forward holding a tablet. "You should see this," they said quietly to Ty Dot. Ty snatched the tablet and her eyes scanned the screen. Whatever she saw made her lips part in silent disbelief. She turned the screen toward the audience for a brief second, and gasps erupted again. Blurred but recognizable, the image showed Evelyn and the man in question on a dimly lit rooftop. Champagne flutes in hand, their faces far too close for the moment to be mistaken as innocent. Evelyn didn't even flinch. "So what?" Chase said simply. "You wanted proof. There it is. But that doesn't change the fact that he's not your property. He can be with whoever he wants." "And you were more than happy to volunteer," Ty spat back. Dot. The producers, sensing the moment was hitting peak drama, made no move to cut away. Instead, the cameras stayed tight on their faces, catching every flicker of emotion, every breath. Ty's hands clenched into fists at her sides, but she didn't strike. Instead, she took a step back, her voice suddenly lower but no less intense. "You've made your choice, Evelyn. Now live with it, because after this, nothing between us will ever be the same." The words hung heavy in the air, and even Evelyn's confident facade seemed to waver for the briefest moment. Still, she stood her ground. Her gaze locked on Ty as if daring her to say more. The audience knew they were watching the unraveling of something bigger than just a fight over a man. This was about pride, about deep-seated resentment, about years of history boiling over in one explosive confrontation that neither woman could walk away from unchanged. The room was already vibrating with tension. When Ty took a single step closer to Evelyn, her eyes locked on a rival like she could burn a hole straight through her. The crowd, sensing something seismic was about to erupt, fell silent. Their collective breath held in anticipation. It wasn't just about a boyfriend anymore. This had become personal. A collision of pride, betrayal, and a history of grudges that had never truly been settled. The boyfriend in question, Marcus, stood a few feet back, shifting uncomfortably, as if every second in that spotlight was another nail in his coffin. Ty's voice, low and steady at first, cut through the noise. "You think I wouldn't find out?" she asked, her tone dripping with disbelief. Evelyn smirked, tilting her head slightly, her calmness almost provoking more anger. "Find out what, Ty? That? He and I have a connection. Please don't act like you own the man." The crowd gasped at her audacity. Several phones raised higher to catch every second. Someone in the back whispered loudly enough for cameras to catch. "She's not even denying it." And that only fanned the flames. Ty took another step forward, the air between them practically crackling. "A connection," she repeated, her voice rising. "You call spending the night in his hotel room a connection." Marcus tried to step in, his hands raised like a referee stepping between fighters, but Ty shoved him lightly to the side. "Don't. Not right now," she warned him without taking her eyes off Evelyn. Evelyn's laughter was soft, almost mocking, and it made Ty's jaw tighten. "You know, Marcus told me, you were dramatic. I didn't think he was giving you enough credit." The insult landed hard and Ty's face flushed. Fans online would later slow down the footage just to see that exact second. The shift in Ty's expression from controlled fury to something far more dangerous. The tension finally snapped. Ty lunged forward, not with a full swing, but a forceful shove to Evelyn's shoulder, sending her stumbling back a step. Gasps erupted around them, and security, who had been inching closer for minutes, finally moved in. But Evelyn regained her footing fast and stepped back into Ty's space. The two, now towed to as the room erupted into chaos, dot off to the side. Chantel appeared, her expression a mix of shock and something else. Maybe satisfaction, maybe fear. She glanced toward Marcus, who now stood frozen, his face pale. "You need to fix this," she hissed to him. But her words were drowned out by the shouting match between Ty and Evelyn. "You're a liar!" Ty shouted, her voice cracking slightly. "You've been smiling in my face while sneaking around. Behind my back, and you." She jabbed a finger in Marcus's direction. "You let it happen." Marcus started to stammer something about misunderstandings, but Evelyn cut him off. "Oh, please." "Didn't let anything happen. He came to me because you've been too busy playing Queen Bee to notice when someone else actually listens to him." That line sent a ripple through the audience. The insinuation that Marcus had sought comfort in Evelyn's company because Ty wasn't there for him was gasoline on an already raging fire. Ty's hands curled into fists at her sides, her shoulders rising and falling with each breath from the far corner. Jackie, who had been keeping a careful distance, stepped forward, her voice trying to cut through the madness. "Ty, don't do this. Here. This isn't the time or place." But Ty wasn't listening. "Oh, it's exactly the time and place," she shot back. "Let everyone see the kind of snake she really is." Security finally managed to wedge themselves between the two women, but neither seemed willing to back down. Evelyn leaned over, the guard's shoulder, her voice cold and steady. "Maybe if you treated him right, you wouldn't be in this position." The room erupted again, shouts from the audience, camera flashes going off like lightning, and the hum of live stream. Comments scrolling faster than anyone could read. Some fans were calling for Evelyn to be removed immediately. Others were demanding answers from Marcus, and a surprising number were defending Ty's reaction. The division was instant and fierce, spilling out onto every platform within minutes. As the shouting subsided just enough for voices to be heard, again Marcus finally tried to speak. "Both of you stop. You're making this worse." But his words fell flat, drowned out by a fresh wave of insults from Ty, accusing Evelyn of intentionally targeting her just to get a rise out of her. Evelyn didn't deny it. She simply shrugged, which in that moment might have been more infuriating than any actual response. Meanwhile, cameras caught a telling shot of Chantel whispering something into Jackie's ear, causing Jackie's eyes to widen. Whatever was said, it added another layer to the already tangled mess. Because Jackie's next move was to pull Marcus aside and speak to him in a tone so low it was impossible to catch on. Mike.Ty noticed immediately. "Oh, so now you've got your little council over there?" she called out, pointing toward the three of them. "Planning your next lie?" Marcus shook his head, but the optics were bad. Three people huddled together while she stood across the room, still reeling from betrayal. The producers, realizing they were sitting on gold, came out, made no effort to cut to commercial or divert attention. Every second of this was pure unfiltered drama, and they knew the replay value would be astronomical. The tension was now so thick that even the people not directly involved seemed afraid to move too quickly, as if a sudden gesture could trigger another explosion. And then Evelyn, with perfect timing, delivered her final line of the night, so far soft but deadly enough to slice through the noise. "Maybe you should ask him where he was the night before last." The effect was immediate. Ty froze, her brow furrowing as the implications sank in. Marcus's eyes darted away, unable to meet hers, and the crowd collectively leaned forward, hungry for the next revelation. The room seemed to contract around them, the lights harsher, the air heavier and afraid to move too quickly, as if a sudden gesture could trigger another explosion. And then Evelyn, with perfect timing, delivered her final line of the night, so far soft, but deadly enough to slice through the noise. "Maybe you should ask him where he was the night before last." The effect was immediate. Ty froze, her brow furrowing as the implications sank in. Marcus's eyes darted away, unable to meet hers, and the crowd collectively leaned forward, hungry for the next revelation. The room seemed to contract around them, the lights harsher, the air heavier, and the truth, or whatever version of it was about to surface, hanging just out of reach. Ty's breath caught in her chest as Evelyn's words echoed in her head the night before last. She repeated it silently, the phrase clawing at her nerves. Her mind instantly scanned through Marcus's vague excuses, his late-night text about handling business, and the way his phone had been conveniently on, silent. She had brushed it off at the time, convincing herself that paranoia would only push him away. But now, with Evelyn's eyes locked on hers like a predator savoring the kill, every ounce of doubt she had pushed aside came flooding back. What is she talking about? Ty's voice was low but sharp, each word slicing through the charged air. Akis shifted on his feet, rubbing the back of his neck in a way that screamed guilt to anyone watching. "Ka, don't do this here," he muttered. "Don't do this here," she repeated, her voice climbing. "Have you been doing this behind my back? So, I think here is exactly where we do it," the audience murmured, and phones tilted forward, recording every detail. Evelyn stood with her arms crossed, a faint smirk pulling at her lips, clearly enjoying the chaos she had unleashed. Marcus tried to steady his tone. "I was with a friend. Nothing more. A friend." Ty's laughter was humorless. "Like the friend. Standing right next to you right now." She jerked her chin toward Evelyn. The crowd's reaction was immediate, half gasps, half eager shouts, feeding the atmosphere with even more frenzy. Jackie, who had been watching in silence, finally spoke up. "Marcus, if you got nothing to hide, just say where you were." The directness of her question made Marcus flinch. Hesitation was all the confirmation Ty needed. "Wow," Ty whispered, her voice trembling. Not from weakness, but from the sheer force it was taking to keep from screaming. "You didn't even have the decency to lie fast enough." Evelyn tilted her head, eyes still locked on Ty. "You want to hear it from me?" "Fine. He wasn't with me that night, but he was with someone else." "Kay, she's closer to you than you think." The words landed like a grenade in the center of the room. Heads turned, whispers shot across the crowd, and cameras zoomed in on Ty's face as her eyes darted from person to person trying to read the truth. Chantel, who had been quiet up until now, took a step forward. "You don't have to play this game, Evelyn. Just say the name." "Oh, I'll tell it when I'm ready, Evelyn," said, her tone infuriatingly calm. "I'm not here to protect her. I'm simply here to make sure Ty understands the sort of guy she's supporting." Marcus's jaw clenched. "You're twisting this, Evelyn." "Am I?" she shot back. "Or are you simply upset the truth's finally slithering out from behind the rock you've been concealing it under?" The stress was excruciating now. Ty's hands trembled as she attempted to put together who Evelyn may be referring about. Her thoughts flew over faces, friends, relatives, co-workers. The notion that someone she trusted may be involved made her stomach churn. And then from the far side of the room, a voice pierced the quiet. "Maybe she's talking about me." Every head turned to see Renee's old pal stepping. She stepped forward, her face inscrutable. Ty's heart fell to her abdomen. Her voice almost rose above a whisper. "Renee," she said. Renee was silent at first. The crowd began to whisper as the pause lasted for a considerable amount of time. She concluded by saying, "We didn't prepare for it, just happened." The words triggered a flurry of emotions, including gasps, cries, and phones snapping back to recording mode. Ty's lips parted, but no sound came out as her face became pale. She took a step back as if Marcus's touch had scorched her. "You?" Ty said, her voice breaking. "I'm sorry," Renee replied hastily, "but you were in my house last week. You held my baby. You sat at my table, Ty." The noise of the audience made the words seem hollow. With an almost contented sparkle in her eyes, Evelyn watched the action play out from a distance. Jackie intervened because she knew she had planned the ideal bombshell. Despite efforts to defuse the situation, the harm had already been done. Her words, "This is getting out of hand." Ty's voice was low but lethal as she whispered, "You came into my life like a sister." But no one was listening anymore? Ty was locked on Renee. every ounce of her betrayal radiating through her trembling frame. "You," she said, gesturing at Marcus with trembling palms. Marcus opened his lips, but there was no way he could make an apology at that point. You let it happen. You let her take something that was supposed to be ours. The crowd had evolved beyond mere onlookers. They saw an implosion in real time. Every camera lens and eye was trained on Ty, anticipating her next outburst or breakdown. Rather, she started to go away, but halted at the door. Her voice broke through the confusion. "Keep out of my life, you two." "And you," she said, looking at Evelyn. "You'd best hope we never cross paths again." Marcus, Renee, and Evelyn were left standing in the ruins of what had just transpired as the room's noise level exploded as she vanished backstage. With no possibility of ever being buried, again, the truth hung heavily in the air. There you have it. Originally intended to be a fun-filled evening, it became one of the most dramatic moments we've ever witnessed on reality TV. It starts with Evelyn's strategic disclosure and ends with Renee's startling admission. The bonds we believe to be unbreakable have obviously been broken in front of millions of people. Reactions from fans are already saturating social media. Because Ty left with her dignity, several people referred to her as a queen. Many people are asking why Evelyn stirred the pot in the first place, while others are criticizing Marcus for openly breaching her confidence. Was she attempting to keep Ty safe, or was this all about getting even? The consequences of the moment is far from done. Friendships are no more. There are concerns about who knew what and when, and relationships are in ruins. Will Ty recover more powerfully than before? Or will the wounds from this betrayal be too severe to heal? Will Marcus or Renee ever receive the criticism they merit? Or will the drama simply be pushed aside until the next scandal breaks out? Want to hear what you think? Do you believe Evelyn did the right thing by exposing the truth? Or did she cross a line by airing it all out in public? Please share your opinions in the comments section below. If you were as surprised as we were, remember to like this video. To ensure that you never miss another breathtaking moment like this, subscribe to the channel. And ring that alert because if the rumors we're hearing are accurate, this is just the start of a much larger storm. The Tempest.